Community Beacon, Fridays at 6:30 EST, with your hosts Michael Seville and Joel Simmons. A channel whose focus is liberty. A place where the lessons discussed and taught will create openings to a more open and freer mindset. A mindset where you may reach the height of your potential and excel. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joel.
Here we are. All right.
I think we are. I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties.
Yes, sir. We are here.
All right.
And we're back. Dun, 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 dun.
I don't know if we ever started. This might be the first video I go back and try to edit. Man, I appreciate
let it roll.
Let it roll.
Let it roll. It'll be fine. Raw and uncut. Coming to you straight out of Riviera Beach in Jamaica. Right there is the real estate king. And he is actually, I don't know if it's a vacation, y'all, but I'm going to call it a vacation because he never goes on vacation. So now we are finally catching him somewhere other than at the studio. Give it up live for the great Michael Seville. Yeah, I like that.
That's how I felt this morning. I went for a run around the neighborhood. Oh my gosh, just to be able to witness just a different environment, right? And it was enjoyable. And then I realized that at some point in time that I was just at peace. But then I realized also that I was at peace at home and I was at peace here. So this, me not necessarily being on site, me being in this, beautiful location, definitely different from Palm Beach in the States in general. I'm just at peace, period, man. I was on peace before I got on the plane. I was at peace when the plane took off. I was at peace when the kid behind me was screaming his head off. The little baby was screaming their heads off. Didn't even think about it. Was wondering if the parents were okay, because normally the parents tend to be, feel a little bit of ways when their kids are going off. But I was good about that. I was good when I got off the plane and saw the beautiful view. I was good. I was at peace when I woke up this morning and went for my walk / jog around the neighborhood. And I was like, man, you can just be at peace with oneself. And I think sometimes we often use this slogan, they say, no matter where you go, there you are. Right. So, there's no running from you. And man, I felt that this morning, like, okay, I'm hundreds of miles away from, quote unquote home. And I feel peaceful still, man, I thank God and I thank the blessings for that, brother. I didn't get a chance to introduce the brother on the other side of the screen. I just jumped right into it. Guys, you all know this is the incomparable, my brother from another mother. Shouts out to Mr. Joel Simmons of the Tenacity Foundation. If you guys haven't been checking out his shows that pop up on Wednesdays, it starts with me. If you're in Palm Beach and haven't had the chance to congregate with the brother, definitely need to check out the House of Prayer over there in Riviera Beach where he attends. And at the same time, just to be around him, how much being around the brother. So, guys, that's a long way to say that brother on the other side of the screen. That's Mr. Joe.
We got a little bit of delay going on here. But I definitely appreciate that, Mike. I definitely appreciate it. There was a little bit of delay in there, but that's all right. It's all good. I appreciate the love that you're sharing. You good?
Yeah, I hear you now.
You good?
Yeah, I hear you now.
All right. I like it. I like it. I like it.
All right.
Little pause action, man. I'm telling you, we're doing what we do. Listen, anytime Michael will tell you, whenever there's some type of technical difficulty, it means buckle up because it's about to go down. That's normally what it is. The old man with this junk box cart. He's trying to get into the building again and trying to spoil the goods, but he's met up with two strong men. Good God Almighty. And he just can't spoil these goods.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Well, I don't know what part we got, but.
Oh, you was doing introductions. But look, check this out. Check this out.
One of the things that we.
Check this out. I was drinking some tea, the same tea that your mother introduced me to. Your dad made me this tea. And I said, what kind of tea is that? He said, oh, my wife, this is what she always would drink. And it's the yogi, the ginger with honey. And so I was drinking it. So I got 2 bags in here. So I'm going to tell you what one of them says. And then, later on, I'll mention the other one if it comes up. But based off of what you were saying, and forgive me, y'all out there, for being a little bit of rude and elementary and not getting into all the shows and everything like that. Y'all should know us by now, so it's all good. You said you were like, what you were describing was freedom. And so I looked at this thing right here, and I know you can't see that, so I'm gonna read it. It says, uncage your heart, free your heart, let it be wild. And I was just like, man, Michael Seville is on the wild trip of his life. He's just free out there in the airplane, like Leonardo DiCaprio on the Titanic. That's what I see, man. Like I'm just looking at your mannerisms and everything. And I'm like, and I saw this coming. I saw it. I've been watching this over the last couple of months, and I was talking about how patient you are. And you kind of chuckled a little bit. That's my dog. So, but it's like, I've been watching you, man. Let me let you go ahead and jump in.
No, absolutely, man. You said freedom. I say peaceful. I think they're pretty much intertwined. And I think a lot of us, what we tend to do is we're not chunking up to these higher values, these values of peace, freedom, love, joy. And it was interesting. It was the brother that came, prior to us getting onto the talking about this mean. What does happiness mean to each other? We kind of were describing it, and similar to with the peaceful and the peaceful and somewhat freedom. I don't really consider freedom equality. I think freedom more. It depends on what it is, but kind of is authenticity to me. But I thought one of the things that we could come on here and talk about was like actually defining some of these qualities, right? Like the quality of happiness, the quality of joy, the quality of freedom. Because I think for most people, at least it is for myself, I know, brother, it probably is for you as well. Like these qualities are important. And so how we define it is and it can be how we see ourselves. And I don't think we've really like delved deep into these words that we use, not to be like we have to stick exactly to it, but just kind of like, what does this mean to me? That way when people are describing it, you're not getting caught up with what their definition of it is. It's like, what do these words mean to me? So for instance, the brother and I would describe, he asked me, what did I feel like happiness was to me? I think that's an interesting point. I think that's something that a lot of us, especially when we talk about marriages, I'm not happy. Well, your definition of happiness from where you stand, your point of view, may be different from my definition of happiness and my point of view. I might just be happy because I'm comfortable and the bills are paid. This other person might be happy. Happiness may come to them when they in their mind as if in the world. Some people may draw happiness from helping other people out, supporting in service. Other people are like, listen, I just want to make sure that my home is taken care of. If my home is taken care of, I'm happy. If there's food at the house, my children take care of, that's it. And other people may not. So, brother, if you could just expound on your definition of happiness, and I love to, we can kind of start from there.
Yeah, man. I like that. I don't know if I'll be able to produce the exact same answer that we were going through, because it was I guess when we were speaking about it earlier, it was almost about it was one versus the other. So it was a comparison model that we were talking about just before we got on here. It was like happiness and compared to joy, you know. And my thought process on it in that perspective was happiness is more like externally motivated. You know, I go to the movies, which I don't go to the movies, but if I were to go to the movies or if I were to go to, a basketball game, football game, whatever, and I'm going there to receive some type of happiness, to receive that type of vibration. I want to be around people, I want to watch a TV show. This person, it's going to make me laugh. I'm going to watch this show. I want to laugh. I'm going to become happy. But joy, on the other hand, in my thought, in my perspective, is something that is, internally motivated. So there's something inside of me, I'm sitting still and I feel like smiling for no particular reason. Maybe there's something inside of my mind that I'm thinking about. I'm remembering a memory, or I have this feeling, or, I feel the wind, the breeze in the air, and I recognize that I'm grateful. And, my gratefulness, signals to me this is what joy is.
Right.
Joy is without need of external motivation. I don't need a hype guy in the room to pump me up so that I can laugh at the characteristics of this hype guy, or so that I can laugh at, the buffoonery of individuals. But there's this feeling that says everything's all right. There's this aura that's on the inside that speaks to me, that talks with me, that walks with me, that tells me I am his own. I know I went into a song right there, but that's joy. And happiness doesn't feel like that to me. Happiness, it's fleeting. It moves like the wind. You can get a strong gust of happiness and you'll laugh until the midnight hours, and you can get no gust and you walk around crabby all day long.
That's interesting. I was thinking, because it almost sounds like happiness is a mood, and being lost in the moods of it. So how I define happiness and joy, ultimately they all are feelings for me, and they have different feelings for each one of them. I think oftentimes, we're told in some of our books, etc., that or we've heard, don't let the devil steal your joy. Don't let you should always have that joy. And I'm with you on the joyful part, because there's a huge difference to it. I'll be attending a couple of funerals this weekend, so I'll go to one on Saturday and I'll go to one on Sunday, and it's hard because for me happiness is expressed outwardly, and at times I think it can be harder to express outwardly this happiness. I think I always have it. I can always obtain it. However, social cues may say, this may not necessarily be the time to show it. That's what social cues do. However, I think there's always an empathetical way of expressing it. But you can be joyful without any kind of social faux pas at a funeral. You can have joy within you because you can think about this person's life, what this person meant to you, the values that they taught you, the experiences that you had with this person. And I can elicit joy from that. I can also somewhat elicit happiness from those same experiences and joys, etc., at the funeral. I may not necessarily be laughing. I may not necessarily be, just in a silly mode, so to speak, just to be respectful of the people around me. But I've started to whatever I can control internally, and these things that are these values, happiness and joy, that are important to me, I've started to say, how can I elicit those things without any type of outside stimuli? How can I just be internally stimulated in being happy and being sad? Because I think, sad is sad as well. It's a different emotion. However, and being happy and in being joyful, because those things are important to me. And if I relied on an outside force, if it's not anything between myself and God, then then it's almost like I ultimately I don't want anything to be controlled from outside measures, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. I do like that. And I guess in my depiction of joy versus happiness, then I would consider joy to be something that comes from the inside out. And I agree. You know, I agree that there's a lot
All
more
right,
that
Timmy. All
comes.
right.
Yeah, Timmy is warning the world. So just a moment ago was a package, and I don't know right now what he's got going on. Normally I'm upstairs, but you all know, for the people that have been watching all the different shows, I have been hanging out downstairs in my kitchen nook area, taking this table, because of the environment. I mean, it's just like open space.
Yeah.
It's open space, and the ease of this access and everything. Plus, I got a picture of my mentor up behind me, and that's the only picture I have of him up in my house at this point in time. So I like this seat right here, and this is my seat. I actually, when I sit down and dine with my family, my seat is back to the TV, back to the family room. Um, you know, in front of me is the three seats of my family, and there's a large picture of an island. And the way that the picture works is that you're walking out onto a gazebo on, in the middle of the water, and it's beautiful. And so I love to look into that picture. And you were talking about eliciting. You know, this elicits dreams for me. My thought process goes to, okay, peace, relaxing, accomplishment, success, you know, and it always, it's a grounding picture for me. So, and that's an external thing. But as you also mentioned, you said you believe that sometimes, you can get these feelings, you can derive these things from other things, from imagery, from imagination, from and this is me expounding, from memories. And I agree with that, because I believe you can bring up happiness that way and chuckle, and I believe you can bring up joy. And so the curious part of what you were saying is that I really enjoy it, was that, in thinking in that context, I was like, huh, that expanded my own thought process a little bit, because it was like, I can bring up a happy thought, but is it a happy thought anymore, or is it a joyful thought? Where is the difference? I looked up the definition, and happiness leads to joy, not leads to as in take me by the hand, but it almost points towards joy. And then I looked up joy, and it points back towards happiness. So there's a very
Interesting.
thin line.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can read them to you.
You say it's a thin line, but I love us talking about a thin line between joy and happiness versus anything else. The the fact of the matter is, I think both of them can play as resources in each one. I personally think joy is a higher value, and I think happiness is definitely, part of joy. And you still with me, brother, or am I gone?
I hear you. You,
Okay.
you were gone for a couple of seconds, but you're back.
Okay, perfect. So, but I just enjoy having this conversation in regards to it. And these are the type of conversations I think that a lot of people should start having, specifically surrounding their values. When you mentioned that picture and the values that came out of that picture, like that's it. And a lot of people don't have those thoughts. So we had a conversation last week and we started talking about identity. Our identity and our character are made up of all of these different values. The issue that comes along with most of us is that a lot of these things are given to us versus us choosing them. So if you're not choosing them and you're just kind of falling haphazardly into whatever is given to you, then you start to look for outward influences, evaluations coming outwardly. But if you have these things internally, then, or you know what they are internally, if you know what they are internally and how to elicit them, however that may be, whether it is, you mentioned going to the movies, whether it comes from that picture, but you put that meaning there because you know where that takes you. And I think a lot, and you also mentioned something last week that was interesting. You said, brother, a lot of people are watching us and are looking for our cues. You said a lot of people, you mentioned want to be similar to what we have going on. And I think a lot of that comes because we are so solid and stable within our identities because unbeknownst to me, I didn't know it at the time. Like I was establishing all of these values and what they meant for me. So how do I make Michael joyful? Or how is Michael joyful? What does Michael see when he's joyful? Or what does Michael see when he's happy? What does Michael see when he's, let's use a different emotion or value. Let's say the grieving. What does the grieving process look for Michael? You hear people say it all the time. Like, what does grieving is a process. There's certain stages in the process. No one goes through it the same. And sometimes you go back and forth, sometimes you go forward. But how do you define it for yourself? Because at least at this point, now you know the rules to the game. And if you understand the rules to it, then you can start to play with those different rules. So now instead of me going to these, grieving in a way that is just, to me personally, sad and depressing, because I know what sad looks like, I know what depressing looks like. For me, I can go through this grieving process with happiness, with joy, with resilience, with peace, with calm. Because what I want to make sure that although I'm having this, what some person would think of as negative grieving or sadness, how can I go through it with as many resources as possible? And then that way that the possibilities that I have in my life, the choices I get to make are endless, as opposed to just being, kind of just going through this one pathway. The pathways are endless if you have all your resources available to you. So we can go back to the happiness and the joy, not knowing that happiness is fleeting. Okay, happiness is fleeting. I can understand that point because it could be, right? If we don't know what it is. But then if we start to identify it, okay, brother, well, what needs to happen in order for you to be happy? Now you can go in and you can start to think about it. Well, and you'll probably go from past experience. Well, previously, I felt happy when you can name those things that were going on. So what exactly was it entailing? Oh, I was around family. Okay, so family makes you happy. Yeah. So why does family make you happy? Well, I get to be and interact with these people. Okay, I'm interacting with the family people who I feel close to. Okay, so what does that do for you? And you're like, well, I get this sense. You're like, you'll chunk it up to connection. Well, I get this sense of connection. So now that's a whole different ball game. Now you can say, connection makes me happy. So now it's no longer just about these certain people. It's about you feeling connected. So now I don't necessarily have to be around these people, but I do, if I'm around other people, I can just be connected around these people. And so if we start to go down this pathway of, okay, based on prior experience, what made me feel this way? What elicited these different values? Why did I have these values? And then we start to say, okay, so what did that do for me? And we start to form our way going up this ladder up until we see, okay, well, this is what I was searching for. I was searching for connection, maybe searching for love, maybe searching for joy, maybe searching for peace. Well, what needs to for once we understand that the higher value, now we can start to use it in all different types of ways. I'm hoping the brother's getting this. I know I'm cutting in and out. You there, brother? Okay, perfect. We are back recording, guys. You all gonna have to forgive me. Although we've had leaps and bounds in Jamaica. You got to remember, when I used to come out here as a kid, there was no electricity. You had to walk to the water pipe. You know what I mean? Like, everything was ran by kerosene. Now we have the internet, which at times is better than the internet in America. But during these peak hours, a lot of people are on it, and I'm all the way outside here in the gazebo as well. I want to talk about us chunking up to like the higher values and how we get there. Because if we want to elicit something like happiness, and I agree with the brother, it's like that for a lot of people. I've experienced it, where I was even like, man, maybe happiness is just a side dish, right? Like I used to say, I want to be joyful. I want to be peace is huge for me. Like, peace is a very high value for me. I enjoy my peace, and I enjoy joy. And love. Love is the highest value for me. I would always say, with the happiness, happiness is just a side dish. If I have the main dish, I'm okay. But what's the problem with having it all? What's the issue? I'm assuming most of us wouldn't have an issue with being happy, all the time. We just have to break it down with what exactly it is happiness is to us. If we decide that happiness is externally motivated, then that's fine. You're allowed to have that. However, if you don't want happiness to be externally motivated because you enjoy the feeling, whatever that elicits inside you of happiness, then we're allowed to do that as well, right? But sometimes you can get lost in happiness, just like sometimes we get lost in sadness, or you get lost in and that turns into depression, right? Because depression tends to be like sadness over an extended period of time. And you can get lost in happiness, and that's also not a great feeling. So it's like, so what you want is, we want to have all of our resources while we are eliciting these different feelings. So when we're talking about happiness, we'll go through this with happiness, but we can go through this with a lot of different qualities. But let's talk about happiness, because at least, it'll help both of us out working on happiness as a quality. So we would say, okay, well, what does the being of happiness feel like? And most of us will go to probably a visual, maybe it might be audio for some, or it might be kinesthetic, like a feeling in your chest or your stomach. What is happiness? And so you would figure out what that is for you. This is just a real quick and easy way to do it. And so I'm gonna keep, brother. I'm gonna still stay with you as an example. And I don't want to speak for you, but I'm just making these things up. So if the brother says, well, I'm happy when I'm around my family, then I would ask the brother, I would say, okay, that makes total sense, right? Yeah, absolutely, right? I said, so what about being around your family makes you happy? So now we're delving even deeper. Oh, okay, well, when I'm around my family, I get a sense of warmth. I get to talk to my wife. I get to talk to my kids. I get to see them smiling. You'll name a bunch of these different visual things that you've experienced in the past. And I say, okay, great. So what about you seeing, so when your wife is smiling, when your kids are talking to you, when you're playing a board game, what does that do for you? And you'll say, well, it gives me a sense of belonging, possibly. It gives me a sense of belonging. It gives me a sense of care. It gives me a sense of being understood or accepted. They're enjoying my company. They're enjoying my time. Okay, so that's beautiful. I think it is. I'm feeling it now. So what about when a person enjoys your company, and a person enjoys your time, and you see people smiling, and it brings up that warm feeling inside of you? What is that doing for you? And then you may say, at this point, I feel connected. I feel connected, I feel accepted. Like that may be two values that come to your mind. So now it's like, oh, okay, brother. So when you feel accepted and you feel connected, you feel happy. And you'll say, yeah. So now what we would do is we would say, so you need connection and you need acceptance in order to be happy, right? As a value. Yeah. So now you can take away those other things. You could take away your family, which is where we started. And you can just say, when I feel connected and I feel accepted, I feel happy. So now you can take this into any other endeavor or any other crowd or around other people. And now you can tell, you like, listen, I'm in this place and I don't feel accepted and I don't feel connected. So chances are you're not happy because you don't have the things that happiness entails that's needed for happiness to happen. However, you could be around other people, me and you could be like, man, when I'm around Mike, I feel accepted and I feel connected. And then you can start to say, well, I'm starting to feel, this could be happiness. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's taken. So now instead of just dealing at the face, what is it? The level, the top, the surface level, you dive deeper into understanding the deeper levels of what happiness means to you. And brother, I'm not saying this is for you. I'm just saying this could be. It was just a quick example because I don't want to tell you what you need in order for you to be happy, right? I'm just saying that's a quick exercise that a person could do to start to understand themselves. Because for you, it may be accepted and connected. Once again, I'm just making that up. But for me, it might be peaceful and so that comes to mind might be peaceful and you mentioned successful or not successful. You mentioned, was it successful? Is it what you said when you looked at that photo? What did you say when you looked at that photo? Some of the words you described.
That was one of the things that, I do see, success in that.
Success.
And
right. So for me, happy might be peaceful and success. When I'm at peace, when I feel peace, when I feel successful, I'm happy. And then you further get to go define, like, so what exactly, like you would get to define what is connection and what is acceptance to you. Then I can go in and I can go define what is peace and what is successful to me. Because my success and your success are going to be two different, probably more than likely going to be two different definitions, right? And my peace and your peace might be two different definitions of when I feel at peace. But this is like delving into ourselves because we've experienced and we've done so many things and we're different human beings. This is why it's so important to start to understand what your identity is, because the more you can delve into what your identity is, the more certain and stable that you can be, as opposed to having to people please and be different around other people, and then that starts a whole other place of guilt and shame, like, because you're doing things to please people, but it may go against your values, or you may start to live up to other people's values, which would incur being shamed or feelings of shame, which is it's a whole different conversation.
Bro, that was good. You gave me a lot out of that. You gave me a lot. Yeah, you gave me a lot, because the thing about it is, like, through that exercise, I was able to see a lot of things. I'm a visual person, and I
do
love
that again
it when
you, because that's where you're seeing it. Like, I don't know, I think that's your right hand or something, like you're seeing it. So your spatial awareness, you're seeing those things. But go ahead, brother. Go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, you know what? And that's something that you just picked up on. I'd have to rewind the tape to be able to see exactly how I showed what I was able to see. But man, it was just it was coming to me and coming to me. And so, you know, and I'm really grateful. This is the reason, like what you were doing is wrapped up inside of what I saw. It's wrapped up in it. And I think that it has everything to do with happiness versus joy, you know. And you mentioned some other things. You started to talk about sadness, and then you mentioned depression. And you were saying, you know, sadness, depression is just, you know, being sad over an expanded period of time. And that's when it hit me. It's like deep rooted. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
great day in the morning. This is a powerful lesson. You know, is that dad?
No, no, that's not him. That's someone just looking for somebody. But go ahead, brother. I'm listening to you.
Oh, okay. So, well, tell him I said hi.
I will.
Um, so I want to give this illustration, and I want the audience, when you all get to this point, I want you to know that this illustration came to me based off of the words that Mike just said. So everything that he was just saying, and this is how we affect one another. We talk about the scriptures where we say iron sharpens iron. I don't know that I would ever come to this illustration. So if the illustration is good to you, then know that it only came about because the two of us are talking together, which is the value of us having these conversations. You know, Napoleon Hill would call this a mastermind, because you borrow from somebody else's wisdom or their interpretation or their viewpoints or their points of views, and you connect. He mentioned the word connect. When that connection happens, there can be something that is so visceral that you feel it. And I think that that visceral feeling is deep rooted. Those things are deep rooted. Anytime somebody can say words that cause a feeling to happen, we have gone beyond surface level things, surface level emotions, and we've gone into a deep rooted value. So this is what came to me, and as you were speaking, it just kept opening and opening and opening, and I was attempting to gather more um, understanding on how to explain it the best way I could. So, to say the least, when you mentioned sadness leads to depression, I was like, sadness leads to depression. I get that. Happiness then therefore leads to joy. I get that. How does that work? And then I thought about it. It's like anger leads to wrath. So what exactly does that mean? Do they lead to each other, or do they come one from another? Or does one give birth to the other? Which one actually comes first? Right. And so, being in the purest of form when we are born, then are there any of these things at all? Well, only God knows, you know, because, you know, you can be born with certain characteristics that are laying dormant inside of you, and possibly these types of things could be there. You know, you could, if you are born underneath the sound of the violin, and your parents are expert, you know, violinists, then as you grow, you may have an affinity to play an instrument and become very good at it. It's part of your chemistry, right? So if your parents are always fighting and there's a lot of violence that's happening, that could absolutely be in your DNA strands. And as you grow, you could have an affinity to become a violent individual. So that's what science is there for. And, you know, and ultimately, God has the answer to all those things. For He's the only one who said, before you were born, I knew thee, you know. So, with that being said, this is my illustration. If y'all will, think of it as a tree, right? So just with that first concept of the birth of a tree, the individual tree, there comes sunlight and there comes rain. Both of these things can destroy the seed. Either one of them can. Too much sunlight will burn the seed and it'll die. Too much rain will drown the seed and it'll die. So as a seed, neither one of them are good or bad. I think that's interesting. And scripturally speaking, it says God causeth his rain to his reign to reign on the just as well as the unjust, as well as the sunlight. So either which way, they both land on everybody. And we associate rainy days with gloom or with dark or with sadness or with trouble. We associate it. That's an association that we give to that, because the truth of the matter is if there was no rain, how would we produce crops? How would we grow the food that we need to eat? How would we replenish the earth? If there was no rain, what would be able to survive the heat of the sun? Because the sun can be like a furnace, and once water evaporates off of the earth, the sun will burn everything, including human beings. And on the other hand, we associate the sun with with feeling warm and happy and comfortable, and we associate it with growth. The sun shines and the flowers bloom, right? But on the other hand, without having its counterpart, the rainy days, then the sun can then become a nuisance to people. People want to shade themselves from it, and if there's too much rain, then it causes a visceral feeling from the head down, where you feel you could become depressed because it's nothing but rain. We need the sunlight. The sun elicits this feeling of warmth, comfort, life, liberty, all those things. So now take those things into mind, and now hear this. As a seed, that's our life. And as the trunk of the tree, we're growing. And in order for the trunk to grow, it has to do two things. One, it has to produce roots. It needs roots. The roots have to go deep down. However, you cannot produce roots. You cannot produce roots without what? Rain. Rain must come down. And so if rain were circumstances, discernment, opinions, truth, edifying, connection, teaching, if rain were any of those things at all, and it's coming down, it is then giving these things to the seed. And the seed is utilizing that to grow roots. And so those things that the seed is getting are now going into the ground to stabilize this seed. Eventually, when the roots are deep enough, it'll sprout and it'll have the power to break out of the ground. And once it breaks out of the ground, it then produces leaves. And leaves are there to catch what? More rain and sunlight. That's what it's there for. And so sunlight is the rays are coming in, and there's more teaching, there's more edifying, right? There's more connection. It's connecting. All of these things are coming down, and between the rain and the sunlight, they're coming down into this plant, and it's growing. Now the roots are weak right now because they don't have much. So now the tree begins to branch out, and when it branches out, it's reaching for raindrops. It's reaching for sunlight because it desires to produce fruit. When it catches the water drops and it feeds the trunk and it feeds the roots, what it catches, it transforms. So at the deeper level, talking about emotions now, the human being, think of this as a person, a little child is catching the communication and the connection of mom and dad and brother and sister and teacher and aunt and uncle. And they are communicating, they are connecting, they are giving love, they are giving discipline, they are becoming angry, they are becoming frustrated, they are in the circumstances of their life. All of these things are happening. The branch then becomes the experience of this tree. Branches reaching out are the experience grabbers. They're grabbing the experience and they're taking in the sunlight or the rain. And the experience of a child is wherever that child goes, he's branching out into newness of life. Because once he was coddled with just a mother or father, but now as he branches out, as he grows, he begins to walk into places where he had never been before. He goes into environments where he had never been before. He hears things he had never heard before, and his experiences become more vast, which means he takes in more rain, more sunlight from different places, from different environments. And so what I began to see is like the fruit of this tree, the fruit of this tree, it becomes things like happiness. It becomes things like sadness. It becomes things like anger, anxiety. But deep down in the root of it, that's where all the happiness has been stored. All of the experience that has drawn in happiness is stored it deep down on the inside. And this is joy. That's joy. Because now I can produce my own happiness. I've got a happiness factory on the inside because of all of the experiences that I've had. I've drawn in that and I called it happiness and I drew it in and I made that my joy. And now when I'm sad, I produce my own happiness through joy. I elicit bliss. I sprout bliss. And the same thing. If I take in more anger, then I elicit wrath. And so that's my thought process, brother. You say your connection is getting worse. I don't know how much of that you got. I'm gonna put it back to you and see what's going on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I think it's getting. I wasn't. This is when it gets really good is when the connection starts going out. But yeah, I'm listening to the analogy, and especially specifically when you say like, what are we taking in, the good and the bad of it, or what we frame it as, whether what's good and what's bad. Was the sun it, or was it the rain? However, we needed both of these things, right? Um, and you use it all for the good. And then you mentioned at the end what I heard, and I missed some of it, but what I heard sounded like exposure, the exposure you get after you leave out of this, the place of your beginning. And you start to experience these things, which is interesting because as I was on my walk today, I said, you know what? I'm here, and normally when people go on vacation, and because I've had these experiences, there's this excitement, there's this newness, and there's this, all this is important, etc. But as I was here, I was like, it's all the same, whether I'm in Palm Beach or whether I'm in, where I'm at, Jamaica, or wherever I'm going out. It's just exposure. It's just more stimulus that's added to the journey that I'm on. It's all for the good. There's nothing extra about it. I see it. This is all different. It's beautiful. It's beautiful in Palm Beach. There's people who are coming from the Midwest and they say it all the time. Chicago, like, I can't believe you guys live here. But we've gotten so used to not being present with it that we're just like, ah. And then, I'm sure you get people who come from, it's like, when was the last time you've been to the beach? And you're like, I don't know when the last time I went to the beach. It's not something that I do all the time. Hey, Kathy, how are you? And so it's just, I think I'm talking.
You say, hey.
Can't hear that. That's kind of like I got from what you were saying. But once again, it is good. Like it is now. It's going in and out.
Yeah, brother. So what I found is that when I go on the mute, then your signal works better. So I'm on mute while you talk.
Okay.
And it helps
Okay.
a lot. But Kathy said hi.
Okay, no worries. Oh, okay. I didn't hear her say hi. I just saw her walk by. But yeah, I think we'll end it here, man. It's been a beautiful, I think, a great conversation. A lot for me personally to think on. I'll often after our conversations, the next day I'm like, man, maybe we should do like an afterthought. Everything that we spoke about before, then you let it integrate into your brain, and you're like, I was thinking about, this should have came up, or this should have came up, because there's so many points that we get to draw from each other, and for that, brother, I'm definitely appreciative of you. So I want to thank you for us continuing to do this.
Yeah, man, Mike. Likewise, like I said before, man, I'm drawing from you 100% as well. This has been an excellent conversation, and man, I was glad to catch you somewhere this time. Because normally you catch me all over the place, and this time I caught you. So, yeah, and I'm just grateful that we get a chance to be on a trip somewhere, someplace together, and we can record the community beacon, somewhere. We'll go to Dubai and we'll record it there. All right, looks like we might have lost the brother right there for. All right, everybody, we truly appreciate y'all being here with us on this day. You know, we just, wherever you are, just continue to do the best things that you can do. Continue to love on one another. Continue to explore the resources of your joy, and to grow from that. And meet back up with us again on the next Friday at 6:30 because we would love to see you. So put some comments out there, and let us know what you think about what we have going on. So we'd love to see you soon. Peace.